everyone, and welcome to the Propcast. My name is Louisa Dickens, co-founder of LMR Re and board director of the UKPA, and I shall be your weekly host. Each week for 30 minutes, we'll be connecting the VCs, Proptech startups, and real estate professionals globally, and assist in bridging that famous communication gap we all love talking about. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Propcast. Today's show will be on simple property management. And today we are joined by Jem Savas, co-founder and CEO of Plantific, and Andy Belton, who's the Chief Operating Officer and Deputy CEO of Notting Hill Genesis. So welcome to the show, guys.
Great to be on the Propcast. Thank you very much for the invite.
Hi, Louisa. Great to be on. Thanks for the invite as well.
Thanks for joining me. Now, let's start off with Jem's sort of story. So he founded Plantific in, I think it was something like 2012, and Plantific is now an award-winning digital platform for property management. This platform empowers housing providers to streamline operations and enhance the resident experience, unlocking operational savings, throughout and completing work order management solutions, and works the marketplace better trade professionals. Plantific is now in 6 countries. Now that's including the US, which is a recent expansion, and has over 165 people. Now, before devoting his time to Plantific, Jem worked for some of the world's best known banking institutions, but always maintained a keen interest in property, conceiving the idea for Plantific with co-founder and CTO Emre when undertaking property management projects. Now, together, Emre and Jem are driving Plantific's international growth across the property management ecosystem, and also becoming a leading voice in the future of Proptech. And I'm really looking forward to hearing a bit more about this product and further plans in a moment. But also today, we are joined by Andy, who is the current CEO of Notting Hill Genesis, which, if you don't know Notting Hill Genesis, for a lot of our listeners in the US and APAC, Notting Hill Genesis is one of the largest housing associations in London's southeast, which owns and manages more than, I think it's something like 66,000 homes and over 2,000 staff. Is that about right, Andy?
Yeah, that's about right, Louisa.
Now, in February 2017, Andy stepped out of his operational brief to lead a digital transformation program of automation and efficiency to support Notting Hill's corporate strategy. And he has a strong track record of successfully leading large diverse teams in both the private and public sectors. Before joining Notting Hill in 2002, he worked in the IT industry and held a number of senior management positions, including Managing Director of European Shared Services during his 16-year career at Unisys. And is Irish and has lived most of his life in London, and has also worked in Germany, the Netherlands, and North America. So yet again, thank you both for joining me. And without further ado, why don't we start with the questions? So, Jem, why don't you begin with the story behind, Plantific? How did you get into this space, from banking, and tell us a bit more about Plantific's mission?
Yeah, thank you for the nice introduction. Plantific, started with basically figuring out our own pain points back in the day when we managed a few properties ourselves and invested in property development. It sort of became apparent that it was still a very manual process to provide good service, and there wasn't really any solution out there that would connect the end-to-end experience from a resident to the supply chain, the contractors. And when we looked at different solutions in the market, it was either legacy systems built many years ago, not very cloud-based, or point solutions that didn't really use data to its advantage to manage properties better. And that's how it all kicked off, quite a few years ago. And looking forward now, as you mentioned, we're now over 170 people across multiple countries, have a bit over 350,000 properties now under management or that are used through the platform. And looking at it, fully digitalizing, the experience from a resident to the supply chain in different ways. And happy to go into more detail, but ultimately it's all about bringing the data out and showing to our clients, look, what's happening on property management is all based on looking at the right information, digitalizing work streams, improving operations that way, which then ultimately leads to happier residents, because it's all about transparency. It's all about the Amazon-like feeling for residents now, and that's what Plantific is all about.
And do you find, I guess it's, do you find a lot of people becoming more open to looking at, say, technology? How is your sort of client changing and sort of what they want? And maybe, Andy, we can hear from you in a moment after Jem sort of expanded on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we had a number of different types of clients and over the years, and Andy is definitely, one of the early adopters, and thanks to him, we also been able to get into the sector much faster, into the housing sector in the UK. We now have PRS clients, private rented sector clients in the UK and Germany, and so have a different sector range now. But adoption of Proptech, I think, is still early days. A lot of focus has been going into Proptech. Bigger investments are happening across different companies, but it's still very early days. We're still fighting with a lot of legacy issues, and a lot of clients are still hesitant of scaling Proptech solutions. And I think the asset classes, as the biggest in the class, it's very old school and lots is happening. But Andy can probably attest to it. There's still a long way to go when it comes to implementing Proptech solutions. Yeah.
And so how did you two first meet? Andy, how did you hear about Plantific?
So I was, as you said, Louise, I stepped out of my sort of traditional COO role in 2017 to help what was Notting Hill then, before we merged with Genesis, to move the organization forward in terms of our digital offer. We'd had lots of earlier attempts at putting services on the web and things like that, and it hadn't really come to very much. So I was involved in 2017, and we'd begun to build our own internal platform in the cloud. We call it WorkWise. And then I happened to be at a sort of trade show where Jem and Emery were presenting Plantific as a potential solution for the housing sector, and I thought it looked really interesting and sort of a completely different approach to anything we had in the sector. So we spoke afterwards, and I think we pretty quickly agreed to do something. Jem would say it took ages, but we agreed to do a sort of proof of concept using Notting Hill as an organisation where Plantific could adapt the platform for the housing sector. And we started with a couple of thousand properties as a test, and we did that process and gradually refined that for about a year. And then after about a year, we gave access to more and more of our property portfolio to the Plantific platform. So we can, and the situation we've got to now is, the other thing is it sort of seeing Plantific woke us up to, this whole Proptech idea, really, that organizations like us can use platforms like Plantific or other people's solutions, and we can hook them into our own technology. And that was a real eye opener. Quite honestly, back in 2017, we hadn't really realised what was going on. And the situation we've got to now is about half the volume of our day-to-day repairs go through the Plantific platform.
Oh wow, that's quite something. And what direct impact have you seen since rolling out across your portfolio? It's obviously, in lots of ways, it's much more efficient, and it gives us much more choice around the supply chain. So the whole concept of Plantific is on the one side, it's really a supply and demand platform, as probably, I guess, but it's giving us access to lots of suppliers that we wouldn't easily access in our normal world. So a lot more choice in terms of the supply chain. And then in terms of the whole process, it's just bringing it into the process of either us or one of our residents ordering a repair now is a bit more like ordering a parcel on Amazon. The whole process works end to end, and all of the communication happens all the way through the process. People get
messages and they know what's going on. And that's, that's as much as the repair itself, that's where these things fall down. It's not necessarily about, it's not about bad repairs. It's often about poor communication and people not, if we make an appointment next week and the person forgets and then the tradesman turns up, then the whole thing falls apart. Whereas if people are getting, if they're kept up to date and they're getting text messages, etc., then, the process has a much better chance of working. So, the sort of headlines, I guess, are, modern technology, a big sort of leap forward for us and very much in line with the work we were trying to do with our own WorkWise platform. And then access to a better supply chain. And also, we've seen much greater efficiency. We have seen areas where we've, both reduced the time it's taken for repairs greatly. We've reduced costs, and also we've seen, much higher satisfaction with the process.
Yeah, I think, well, I live in a flat right now and I'm trying to sort of source, we'll get a few things fixed myself. And I mean, what every tenant or whether you're like owners sort of looking for is efficiency, transparency, getting the job done quickly.
Yeah.
But also it's just someone you want to be able to work with a provider that you trust. And by the sounds that Plantific has access to this, pool of tradespeople that a lot of people wouldn't know how to sort of tap into, and it just makes it quite painful. And Jem, maybe I can bring you in on this. You obviously started out with part of the portfolio, Andy's, you worked together to roll out to a lot, across it. Was it that easy to do? It's the public sector property, getting people to buy into technology, change the way they've run this massive association. How has that been, sort of growing that relationship and getting buy-in from the wider business?
It is a complex sector to operate in, and the complexity comes from the procurement requirements, the public procurement requirements that are in place across Europe, not just in the UK. So there is, the buying process is lengthy, is complicated, and for young companies, oftentimes not really, on their radar when they get into a sector like this. So they have to learn how people behave in terms of buying a solution. So it took us a little bit to figure that one out at the beginning. The dynamics, I think, in the housing associations are also slightly different than, for example, the private clients. And the size of some of our clients, including Notting Hill, also means that there are many different types of businesses in the group. A housing association is not just doing social housing. They also develop fantastic new buildings for leaseholders. They retain it as freeholders. Some clients have care homes. Some clients have student portfolios. And so a very large organization to work with. So navigating through who makes a decision, is it the procurement team, is it the finance team, is it, in Andy's case, the COO, or is it the CEO, requires a little bit of experience. And I guess longer term, what is very helpful is case studies and raw data to show to clients. And I think across every country we're in now, that's definitely the case with large clients. They just want to see data. They want to see case studies. And when you sort of go into large enterprise sales, it takes a while, and the more you can show, the easier it gets. And we now have, when we launched with Notting Hill Genesis, as Andy mentioned, we had a few thousand units, and it took us a while to grow. And we're now getting clients onboarded that give us the entire stock right away. We recently had a council come on board, can't say yet, but around 18,000 units. And there is no pilot, right? Because we can now say, look, we have a number of very large clients already. You can speak to them before you sign a contract with us, but this is all based on real data we're showing you. And then it's much easier to convince the decision makers to go ahead.
And what about other markets as well? You've expanded into the US. I guess it's about sort of winning your first sort of client out there, and I guess replicating what you've done in the UK and Germany, and other areas of Europe. Andy, how have you found it with working with a business? Is it, everyone sort of talks about getting, senior change management involved, getting buy-in from the senior people. Have they been receptive to rolling out different technologies?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's, we've all got memories of failed IT projects over the years, so everyone's a bit skeptical. But I think the world has moved on really, and particularly over the last year with COVID. I mean, lots of people a year ago who were, skeptical about running their business via Microsoft Teams or Zoom, have had their minds changed, right? So I think we're sort of over a lot of the resistance now, and I think more and more people are seeing the power of technology. I think our experience of, working with Plantific again, we learned a lot of, we were trying to develop our own technology, and we could see what Plantific were doing and how they worked, and we could see how quickly they worked. So quite often we would talk to Jem's team during the pilot and say that, we had identified some additional requirements for the Plantific platform, and, a couple of days later they come back and say, well, we've done that now.
Wow.
And, but we weren't ready to deal with that. We were expecting the requirements to come back, a couple of months later, because it is a different world. So I think, we've learned a lot. I think, I think the housing sector is beginning to move quite quickly now in terms of embracing technology, but it is, there are still those, we've all got legacy technology that we need to move on from, and we need to move into the cloud for some of our mainstream business processes. But I think the sort of philosophical battles are probably won now. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we're on the right track. Now, it's another hot topic I'd love to go into, and that's obviously ESG, especially sort of around sort of real estate at the moment. I'd love to hear a bit more about what are housing providers doing to support their ESG credentials or missions. And is there anything which Notting Hill's working on at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, on a number of fronts. So obviously we're a big, we have a big property portfolio. Some of it is quite old. So we've got a lot of Victorian stock, for example. We are very much in favour of protecting the environment. So we're working out, pretty much as we speak, we're working out plans as to how we can invest in that stock to improve and reduce our carbon footprint over the next 10 or 15 years. That's we develop a lot of new buildings, but that sort of priced in the new buildings, and we're introducing and building in technology or materials that will be carbon neutral or have as low carbon footprint as possible. I guess on the social front, our purpose really is to provide, for communities, affordable housing for people to live in London that, those people otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to live in London. So I think we're pretty strong on the social front already. And on the governance side, we've done a lot of reflection this year, and not least of all because of all of the Black Lives Matters issues. So, we have a large part of our staff group are Black and minority ethnic, and a large number of our residents are Black and minority ethnic. And, we strive to be an inclusive organisation. We want to, make sure that we're providing services that are the right services for our residents. And we want to be an organisation where, all of our colleagues can thrive in the organisation. And we're conscious, like a lot of organisations, that when you look at when we looked at the leadership in the middle of 2020, it looked a bit too white, really. So we have taken, we've taken specific steps to bring more Black and minority ethnic people into our governance community in the non-exec sense. And we've also introduced a number of initiatives to try and, bring Black and minority ethnic people through the organisation faster into senior roles in the organisation. So there's a lot of work. We've done a lot of work this year and last year, and and that's an ongoing effort now. It's not a one-off thing.
I'd love to bring Gem into this as well when it comes down to the ESG. How does Plantific look at it? You know, how can it sort of help buildings become sort of more sustainable, you know, more environmental?
Yeah, it's a very big topic for all of our clients, you know, both in the social housing and the private sector. You know, on the E front and the S front, I think the platform indirectly already does a lot in terms of social value. We connect local jobs to local trades companies, and you know, through that keep the funds in the communities they belong to, and you know, we help strive the communities to grow that way. As Plantific, we support quite a few sort of non-for-profit social causes. Like Centerpoint is one of our partners, and you know, we help them to sort of reduce homelessness amongst the youth. We recently also launched the Women's Trade Network together with Notting Hill and a number of other clients to support women into trades and, you know, local trade. So, you know, we sort of think about these social values all the time already. From an environmental point, again, indirectly, because we haven't really thought about it, but, you know, contractors, they don't have to drive very long distances. They go to the local work and therefore don't spend too much time in their vans driving around the place. But, you know, on the governance side, data is obviously the most important driver of making the right decisions going forward. How do you find out what a home consumes, right? An old home or a new home. So asset management is super important. IoT is super important. Connecting the data back to say, look, this is a property that consumes this much. Therefore, there might be an opportunity to do these sort of ESG programs. Somebody has to go into that property, a supplier, to, you know, insulate, for example, or change the windows to better windows. And the platform sits at the core of some of this data. And so we help our clients to look at this data and make decisions forward. And what we're now launching, we have this Property Labs program at Plantific, where we invite clients to join and together discuss new innovations, new ideas. And one that's going to launch, I believe, in a week or two is our Building Safety Labs program, together with a number of clients to look at how building safety can be managed. Yep. And the next one will be about ESG. So we bring in clients together with us to say, look, we have this platform that's connected to, you know, great data resources. We've got a supply chain. We've got these workflows. How do we create an ESG concept for you to be able to make better decisions going forward?
Yeah, the more I learn and understand about ESG, it's more makes me recognize that every person can play their part. You mentioned about obviously about tradesmen and women, you know, just being closer, so they have less, but they're driving not as far. I think lots of people, they think ESG, it's all about just the corporate value, what the bigger businesses, you know, can do, but it's also down to the everyday man and women. Now we are, well, what I hope to think we're coming close to the end of the pandemic, or worldwide, we're all making moves to getting back to the new norm. Now, it's obviously had some catastrophic effects, but it's also had some good effects on technology adoption. You know, Andy, what have you sort of seen in terms of how it's impacted the property management? Do you think there's been some positive changes? You sort of mentioned, obviously, getting there in terms of adoption. Is there anything else you've seen?
Yeah, I think, I think on the positive side, I think the way that we've been able to manage our business using technology, we were able to move people to work at home pretty quickly, and all of that, you know, helped us to get through it. We are we do regard ourselves as a people-based business, so not only internally but very much externally. So we want our frontline staff to be out and about, visiting our residents in their homes, making sure everything's okay. So that's the sort of next big challenge for us, really. We had a few false starts last year where we got people to come back from working at home, and then every time we did it, you know, it was a false start. It looks like this time, touch wood, maybe after June, we can encourage people to come back, start doing some of the work they used to do. But we can also see that there are lots of things that people do that they can work more effectively at home, or they can start, at least start their day at home, do some stuff online, then go out into the community or whatever it is. So we're in a, definitely looking at a sort of hybrid situation compared to the way our organization used to function. Probably we will still keep a couple of big offices in London as bases for people to, have meetings, touch base, and I think it is, we'll have some guiding principles really as to how we want people to work, but we want people to work in the most effective way for us and for them, and we'll work that out exactly what that looks like over the next few months, I think.
Yeah, agreed. I think lots of businesses, even mine, are trying to work out what level of flexibility you give your team. How can you ensure that, you're still working together, collaborating, but also I think we all get a hell of a lot more done when we're at our desk at home.
Position yourself to thrive with a 5-week course that covers the essentials of designing, developing, marketing and operating offices in 2021 and beyond. Check out the Future-Proof Office course at realinnovationacademy.com. Quote LMRE for a 10% discount.
Now, Jem, what impact have you seen on the property management industry?
Yeah, it's been a funny one. It really depended from client to client a little bit. So there's some clients who sort of managed really well through COVID with, government stipulations of doing emergency only or keeping the flow going and managing that. So we see some clients who've come through it really well, not many backlog issues and, sort of no complaints. And then we see other clients who have very large backlogs, haven't really been able to manage because they didn't have the digital processes in place to do it through COVID and remotely. There's definitely a big impact on supply chains. Those clients where in-house teams have had big parts of in-house teams, fall into sort of the COVID being sick. And we had obviously also through, I think, Brexit, more suppliers leave the country or more contractors leave the country. So a combination of Brexit, of COVID, put a lot of pressure on getting works done with clients that typically use the older ways of getting works done with smaller number of contractors. So we had an increased number of clients come to us and say, can you help us, please, both from a supply chain problem, but also from a digitalization and sort of starting to work area. The big trend that we've seen last year with us was this flexible economy approach view that clients started having of saying, even if we have big in-house teams, even if we have contract relationships in place, Plantific as a platform can actually enable us to use the supply chain flexibly in any way we want, because we have the solutions to enable clients to do that. And so we have all sorts of clients now with big in-house teams, with no in-house teams, with a number of larger contractors in place, using the marketplace, using single contractors. And that's definitely been a big value add that we brought last year. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we have a lot more discussions now than we had, the 3 years before. And as Andy said, I think the senior leadership of many organizations sort of have accepted that having a Zoom call is okay. And, we don't have to arrange a meeting 3 months ahead. It could be just, a quick one, 30 minutes over Zoom. That was almost unacceptable before COVID. Even if I would have suggested that to someone, they would have not accepted that. So that increased the speed of sort of getting things done for sure. But on the other side, I think one of the questions earlier you asked was around how we worked with NHG to grow what we've done. And there were lots of face-to-face meetings, in groups and being creative and coming up with ideas and talking through things, having lunch together. And, that is missing. That was definitely, not a great experience last year. And overall, I think we came through it okay from a property management point.
Yeah, I think you're being also very modest. I think everyone listening and has seen the great things and the expansion that Plantific has been doing. So it seems like there's a lot more positives coming out of it as well. A lot more people seeing how property management doesn't have to be such a thankless task. It can literally be very simple and easy. Now, you briefly went into your different sort of clients. You have an extremely strong presence in the social housing sector, Jem. You know, are you looking at sort of expanding into other asset classes potentially, or what are the sort of plans for the product?
Yeah, I mean, we already operate in the PRS sector with a few clients. So we're definitely starting to grow into that adjacent market. We have a number of developers as clients who come to us to manage their defects through us in the first 1 or 2 year periods. In Germany, we actually are in the insurance claims business already. So we have an insurance broker client who uses the platform to manage all insurance claims through us in our marketplace. And the way we build the platform is very modular. So we can very quickly adapt to any type of residential client and also to quite a few commercial types of assets to accommodate the concepts to apply. So there's definitely a big focus on expanding into other areas. In the US, you know, the differentiation is between single family and multifamily oftentimes. And while typically we would look into multifamily as sort of our core areas where our clients are, our platform is perfectly suited for the single family environments as we work with local trades. So we can actually empower people to manage a few hundred units here, a few hundred units there. So it doesn't always have to be a big, you know, block or estate with thousands of units.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots to come.
Lots to come. Well, watch this space. And in Jem, we're coming to the final part of the podcast, and we finish it off with the LMRE. So L, lessons learned. Mention anyone, shout out. Are any sort of regrets in the career? And E is, you know, what are you most excited about for the future of PropTech? So Andy, why don't you start us off? You know, is there one lesson that maybe sticks out that you've learned in your career to date?
I think, well, probably 2. So don't waste your opportunities. So you know you can't score if you don't shoot, if you like. And I think it's all about the team. You know, if you have a good team, you can achieve most things.
And is there, what about you, for you, Jem? Would you, is it something similar or anything you've learned since your career in sort of banking and Plantific?
I mean, I definitely agree with them and with Andy as well. What I would add is, and this might be controversial, but, you know, listen to your clients and don't listen to your clients. Right. So, you know, you have to be very close to your clients and understand their pain points and, you know, get their feedback. But then sometimes to disrupt and to change how things work, you also have to challenge them and bring different ideas and different concepts to them, which they might not be comfortable with, or at first might think this is not going to work or this is too big of a risk, but how else will it disrupt, right? So we very much try to do both. We try to listen very clearly, and, you know, through the labs programs we have, we bring them in and talk to them. But at the same time, sometimes we push back and say, hey, you know, I think we can do this better or differently, or, you know, did you think about doing it this way? And just because you've done it for 20 years that way, it might work better if you use technology to your advantage. So that's the big one I learned, you know, like listen very carefully what your clients say and be close to them and take that in. At the same time, think outside of the box and challenge them.
Yeah, I guess it's finding the balance between listening and understanding, but also educating. Right, Andy, is there any one or maybe a product that you'd love to give a shout out to?
Well, I probably should say Plantific, shouldn't I, Louisa? But
no. God, yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah. I mean, it's been great working with Jem and his team, and you know, I think there's a lot more to do. So,
Jem, what about you? Anyone you want to give a shout out to?
No, I'll refrain from this one because I would just say Andy at Notting Hill and his team. So that it wouldn't be nice. But no, I mean, you know, as early innovators, I think they took a risk. They, you know, very quickly moved on and adapted to, you know, using the technology to their advantage. They have a great program that they started building and continually developing it. And I think, we found a perfect fit between a more established, large institution and a young, fast-growing business. And that definitely requires risk-taking. And, I want to thank Andy and his team for making it happen with us.
Awesome. Now, the Rpop, which lots of people don't, well, say often they don't have any regrets in their career. I'm just trying to make a positive spin of it. But is there, Andy, is any regrets you have in your career? Maybe not using Plantific sooner.
Yeah, no, I think we bumped into each other at the right time. But I mean, honestly, Louisa, I honestly couldn't say that I really do. I never really had a plan in my career, and I just seemed to be presented with some great opportunities all the way through it. And as I said earlier, I think probably the right thing I did was take some opportunities that seemed very scary at the time. If I'm really honest, I couldn't say that I've got any, significant regrets. I did once say in an icebreaker where the question was, what would you like to have done if you weren't doing this? And I did say that maybe being Jack Nicholson would have been fun.
Jem, what about you? Any regrets in your career?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of them. I see them as
love the honesty.
Yeah, I see it as a learning curve. From all the things that you can improve on. Biggest regret probably not to become an entrepreneur faster. I spent a good 10 years in mergers and acquisitions in the city, and while I loved what I was doing, I always had an entrepreneurial interest, and I always wanted to be in the real estate sector because, my family is in construction. I sort of grew up in there. I wanted to be an architect, and my dad said, no, you're not going to make any money doing that. So go to business school. And so, yeah, a few years earlier wouldn't have hurt, I think, any of my ambitions. But, you learn from it. I made good experiences, added skill sets that really are helpful today as well. And so it's not a real regret, but definitely if I look back, I could have to be an entrepreneur faster.
Yeah, that's a common theme, which most people that I speak with will say it's not having the courage to take risks sooner, but I think there's no perfect timeline for that. And now we have come to the final question, which is the E part. What are you most excited about when it comes down to the future of Proptech? And Andy, please go first.
Well, I think, large organizations like Notting Hill Genesis can now see the power of technology and how, our whole, everything we do across all the different parts of our organization, some of which, is really, quite old fashioned. We can see how the technology is going to enable us to change that and to link things up much more effectively. The power of data, the power of, automation, and just having all of that at your fingertips to make much better decisions. So I think it's all there now that, the technology is on the shelf almost, and we're just, dipping into it and beginning to really, use it effectively and see the power of it.
Yeah. And Jem, what about you?
When we launched, the term Proptech didn't exist. So, a couple of years later, and it seems like Proptech is one of the hottest areas to invest in across many different ideas. And
yeah.
So in a few years' time, it's grown massively. And I still think we're at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to, what will happen in this sector. So super excited to obviously play a role in it and grow not just Plantific, but support other younger startups who are coming out with Proptech ideas. And, it's an exciting time to disrupt the largest asset class in the world globally. And there's a lot of need in, different segments to bring the data and to the front and use that to create better products and to come up with better solutions, which will help the ESG agenda. So we can play a leading role in helping this planet get cleaner and function better. And that's super exciting to be in.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of the show. It's been a pleasure learning, I guess, more about how property management can be made slightly more easy and slightly sexier, to be honest. Technology can do that, but also learning more about your partnership and how it's grown. And lots of our listeners are startups dreaming of getting some of these case studies, but it just shows if you just keep working it, change your product, listening, understanding your client, what can really be achieved. So thank you both for talking us through that. And if you'd like to let our audience know the best way to connect with you or learn more about Notting Hill Genesis, that'd be fab.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, and we obviously have a corporate website, which is nhg.org.uk.
Awesome. And Jem, what about you?
Yeah, website plantific.com. And if anybody wants to get in touch, please email me directly, cem.savas@plantific.com.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you both for joining me on the Propcast, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you both after the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Louisa.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Propcast, and a big thanks to our special guests. Make sure you visit our website, www.nmre.co.uk, where you can subscribe to our show, or you'll find us on iTunes and Spotify, where all good content is found. Whilst you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate if you could rate and review us on iTunes, or if you simply just spread the word. And I'll catch you later.
Hi, this is Nelson from Proptech. I'd like to invite you to join our Introduction to Data Science and Machine Learning for Real Estate seminar. To learn more, visit proptechquants.com/seminar and use special code LMRE20 on Eventbrite for a discount.
You're listening to a podcast company podcast. This was made by Podcast Syndicator, where we help you go from start to grow to making money with your podcast. Let us help you share your message and your voice with the world. Reach out now, Jason at podcastsyndicator.com or Brett at podcastsyndicator.com to find out more. Thank you for listening, and do come back to hear nothing but the best podcasts.